Thank you for joining us for Ask a Therapist, the Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina series in which we speak with local mental health professionals about issues many people face every day. I'm one of your hosts, Ryle Curtis. And today we're joined by Dr. Jennifer Heath, a medical director with Blue Cross, to talk about the impact that social media can have on the mental health of teens and young adults. Dr. Heath shares tips for parents to help set healthy boundaries when it comes to social media use and how parents themselves can model responsible behavior when it comes to social media and mobile phones. When should parents get involved in their child's online social lives?
Parents should get involved as soon as their children are online. They should start discussions about appropriate use of the internet, ideally staying off the social media platforms as long as possible till they're more in their teenage years and have more of a support system. If parents allow younger teenagers or younger kids to access social media, they should monitor what they're doing closely. If they're on social media, they should be friends or follow them so they can see what content they're putting out there. Be able to have discussions with their child in open communication about the dangers of social media. That be careful with privacy and the predatory behaviors that are online. There are even apps for the younger age groups. There are apps that can alert parents to certain words that are inappropriate or harmful, and that would allow a discussion with the parent and the child to find out what they're being exposed to. Even setting controls on the phone as far as when it's being used if they're younger is sometimes helpful as far as monitoring and helping their children with their screen time.
I really like what you said about open communication. I agree that's so important. And it sounds like a lot of what you're saying here involves setting appropriate boundaries for parents with their children that are using social media. Are there any good tips for parents setting these types of boundaries to help balance online and offline activities?
Yes, there are lots of resources for parents, but the most important thing is for parents to educate themselves about the social media apps that their children are using so they can guide their teenagers and talk to them about appropriate use and safe use. It's important when families start allowing children or teenagers to use a phone, to use social media, that clear rules are set. It's recommended that families sit down and even form a social media plan or agreement or contract, whatever the family would like to call it. That way, the plan can outline rules and expectations of social media use. Something that's also helpful for families is to create no screen time areas or zones in the house, such as the bedroom or dinner time, so that the parents can make sure that the child is not getting into the excessive use and getting into the problematic use that could lead to those brain changes that then could lead to almost like an addictive type behavior.
I think those tips are excellent. And as we know, children are always looking around and especially at their parents as examples. And, can you talk a little bit about how important it is for parents to model responsible behavior when it comes to using social media and their mobile phones?
Yes, it's very important that children see the parents' ability to put their phone down, to set aside time, just like the expectation is that the child or teenager will have screen free time. It's important that the parents take a break and are present when their children are home, when it's dinner time. Parents can monitor their own use of the phone. And then if they realize they might be using it too much or being sucked in with social media, openly discuss it with their children to say, hey, even I can become susceptible to this. And we know that the social media apps are designed to get people engaged and continue to use them. So having that discussion, that would be something that parents can do to help their children develop responsible behavior with social media.
And this all comes back to mental health. My last question is, what are some things that parents can do to help their children with mental health?
Sure, I think, like we talked about earlier, communication is key. Having conversations early on before things become an issue that allows your child or your children to know that you're open and available for them to talk about anything that might come up for them. One way to develop that is to try to be fully present with your child and have active listening, even if they're talking about the show they're watching. The more that you can engage with them, the more comfortable they'll feel coming to you when things get hard or if they have problems online. I think it's good for families to schedule check-in times and regular family time to whether it's dinner or an outing or games or anything, watching a movie, so that there's that balance from in-person activities versus the phone. And parents can also encourage the development of hobbies or interests such as sports or arts or clubs or volunteer work so that their children can remain well balanced and not totally consumed by social media. Also, for mental health, a good sleep routine is very, very important. And so I think that's where some of the rules and expectations of trying to come up with an area where the phones will be during bedtime, and not using the phone for at least an hour before bedtime to help make sure that children and teenagers get enough sleep. A lot of teenager schedules are busy as is, and they don't get enough sleep based on homework and extracurricular activities. But making sure that the phone doesn't become an added problem with their sleep routine can really help with their mental health.
I love some of the words that you've used, open communication and balance and having that dialogue and setting a really good example as a parent. This issue in terms of social media and the use by teens, we know this isn't going away anytime soon. Is there anything else that you think parents need to know in terms of teens' use of social media and their impact on mental health?
I think it's important to just reiterate that there's continued research needed to see what benefits versus harm of social media there is in our adolescent population. But one study I wanted to mention as well found that adolescents who spend more than 3 hours per day on social media have double the risk of poor mental health, including symptoms of depression and anxiety. So that's a benchmark. And as I mentioned earlier, most teenagers are on social media more than 3 hours a day. So it makes us even more concerned and wanting to monitor how they're doing. Um, but I also feel like it's important to know and to remember all of the risks that associated with social media. In addition to the harmful content, you have to be careful with predators, cyberbullying, privacy issues or oversharing information, and then also exposure to excessive advertisements and how all of those things affect adolescent development and self-esteem, and that can lead to mental health issues. And I would like to end on a positive note, though, because like I said, there are some benefits, and I think it's all about balance and being aware of the pitfalls of social media. However, a lot of teenagers report positive experiences with social media as far as feeling that they are able to stay connected with friends. They're able to meet new people and form friendships and learn how to develop relationships. It's online, but they are able to maintain those friendships. And a lot of times they feel like they have a positive community and connection with peers who have similar interests, which they might not have in their local community. So there are benefits, but I think more research needs to be done and more monitoring needs to be done for the risks that could pose, especially some of our at-risk adolescents, to the development or worsening of mental health symptoms.
I want to thank Dr. Jennifer Heath for joining us today for our Ask a Therapist podcast. This conversation around social media and mental health is so important. We hope this discussion can help you or someone you know. Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina members can contact the phone number listed on the back of their member ID card for mental health resources. We hope you'll join us again for the next Ask a Therapist podcast.